Still loading. Hi, and welcome to our CQC registration session, where we will be sharing with you our step-by-step guide for registering with CQC. So you might be, this is a really really for anyone who wants to start a care business or anyone who wants to grow their care business. So you might be currently running a recruitment agency, or you could be maybe running a supported living, which then now you want to then expand, or a children's home, which might require you to provide a service to some regulated service provider, so regulated which might require you to provide regulated services your to your clients or to your service users. So in here today, I've got our compliance lead, who does most of the CQC registration, Ofsted registration, or any compliance related issues with where we work quite closely with care providers. Welcome, and we hope that you find this helpful, and we look forward to engaging with you if you are joining us today. So I'd like to introduce Brasso. Brasso, welcome, and thanks for joining us today.
Good morning. Good morning. Thanks, Angie. And thanks for everyone who's joined. As Angie has already alluded, my name is Brasso, and I'll be taking you through this journey of CQC registration. As we all know, CQC, or any regulatory work, is evolving, is forever changing. It will be good practice for all of us to be alert to these changes, particularly on CQC. It's simple. If you go to CQC, go to their website. At the top, there is a publication section. You click in there. At least you'll get to know what's happening, what are the proposed changes, when are they going to be effective, how do those changes affect you as a provider. Even for those who look into registering for CQC, at least you know what are the prerequisites, what are the things that you need to put in place. So there is whole lots of information in CQC's website. But today I'm going to share with you the journey of registering with CQC. As we know, you only register for CQC if you are applying for CQC regulated activities. And one of those regulated activities, as we all know, it could be personal care, it could be any clinical interventions under what they call TDDI. There is a whole list of services that you have a legal obligation to register with CQC, Care Quality Commission. So I will go through the processes in terms of the whole journey from the beginning all the way to the end. As I said, iron sharpens iron. I will share with you what I know, and equally we can always exchange ideas, empowering each other. None of us has a monopoly of knowledge. Whatever you have or whatever you know that empowers another health and social care provider, let's always learn to exchange ideas. So I'm just going to go through the whole CQC process step by step. Please follow. So these are the topics that I am going to cover. Some of you may or may not be familiar, all the way from the location. I'll touch a little bit on people with learning disability and autism, and then the offices that are established by CQC, the whole process, preparations for what you call a fit for purpose interview. And at the end, if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer questions. So where do we start? Obviously, at this stage, I assume you will have thought about the business that you want to register with CQC. You'll have thought about specific regulation, regulated activities that you want to register. So in terms of the application, it all starts at the location. Very, very key. So depending on what you are applying for, I've just focused on domiciliary care, extra care housing, supported living services, or live-in services, because that's another gray area that I think is good practice for us to be aware of. So a location is where the services are managed from. Those who wants to set up a care home or residential home, is very, very simple. The residential home, the actual building, the address, that's the location. That's where CQC will be coming to make their assessments in terms of your preparedness to provide your chosen regulated activities. But CQC have what they call one of the definitions of locations is the rule number 5 that talks about the location specifically for services of domiciliary care, supported living, etc. So for these particular services, anybody who wants to apply to register with CQC, say you want to provide personal care, the location is the address where the services are managed from. So it can be a house. CQC does not tell us exactly what do they mean, but they give us a checklist of what they're expecting. If you say it's a location, the area, the first thing you must have what they call right of legal occupancy, or an agreement that allows you to use the offices for the purposes of managing regulated activities. I know some people wants to use their private homes. Some people will go to rent offices. Depends on the financial viability aspect. If you have money, you want to go and rent offices, that's absolutely fine. It's not about how big or small, it's not about how beautiful the office is, but within that office, you need to make sure that the office is compatible with things like protection of information, having lockable cupboards, having places for private meetings in anticipation of private clients. I mean, clients, families or friends who are coming to inquire about the services. So it has to look like another office. Some would be saying, how about using my home address? Yes, you can use your home address. But it's very, very important that if you decide to use your home as an office for the purpose of managing regulated activities, you need to make sure that one, you are able to give your company permission to use your home. And that's where the challenge arises. We have people saying, this is my home, it's a mortgage. But when you look at the terms and conditions of the mortgage, it clearly has an exclusion clause that says this accommodation, this house can only be used for private dwelling. You can't use it for, an office or for managing services. So it's very, very important that if you decide to use your home for the purposes of location to manage regulated activities, you verify, you check, make sure that you are able to give permission to your organization to use this particular office. Very, very important. I'm saying this because we've been in a situation whereby, people submit applications. When this question arises, they realize that they can't use that house. So it's very, very important. Some always say, how about virtual offices? Again, virtual offices by their nature is not an office. Remember, when you are registering CQC, inspectors will want to come and physically visit. So when you say it's virtual office, it's just a chair, and it's not just yours. You are sharing with all other tenants within that virtual office. So there is no privacy in terms of protection of information. private meetings, etc., etc. So the best way is check if you are using your private house that you have permission to do so. Equally, if you are renting offices, make sure that you are given a document that gives you permission to utilize. So very, very important. So that's the starting point. It's all about the location. As I said, for those thinking of setting up, residential home or a care home, whichever way, or a clinical practice, it is the location that you need to make sure that it fits the purpose for the services that you are applying for. So that's the first step. I said I'm gonna touch on providing services to people with learning disability and autistics. Very, very hinting on this because we've seen some challenges. CQC are very, very strict. They want to make sure that anybody who's providing services to this service user band, you have all the experience and the qualifications, and you understand, you read the guidance. There is specific guidance that establishes these three domains: the right support, the right care, and the right culture. I'm not gonna go through each and every explanations here, but it's very, very clear that there is a very, very concern about services that apply to provide care and support to people in this category. Somewhere along the line, you find that their rights are being infringed. There is abuse. So it's very, very important that if you choose this area, and that's a group of people that ordinarily we provide care and support, and we set our domiciliary care services to cater for this group of people. So it's very, very important that we are extra vigilant. We make sure that we have all the mechanisms to ensure that our services are compatible with these three domains of right support, right care, and right culture. So where we are now, I spoke about the location. I hinted on the specific service user band. One thing that CQC wants you to do is to establish two offices, that of a nominated individual and a registered manager. And it's very, very important that we understand the job description of these two office bearers, the nominated individual and the registered manager. I will start with the nominated individual and quoting what CQC tells us about the expectations from this particular office bearer. CQC are saying a nominated individual must be employed as a director, manager, or secretary of the organization. That is, there should be a senior person with authority to speak on behalf of the organization. Number two, and which is very, very important, they are saying they must also be in a position which carries responsibility for supervising the management of the carrying on of the regulated activities. Very, very key. So I think we can see that CQC directly or indirectly creates a hierarchy. So this individual is very, very senior. He's supervising the management. So there is somebody who's managing, and in this case, it's the registered manager. But the nominated individual is responsible for supervising. So which simply means if you are recruiting, or if you are a director, you want to be the nominated individual, you need to make sure that you have the necessary experience, qualifications to supervise, because in the absence of this knowledge, these qualifications and experience, you cannot supervise that which you don't have experience on. So it's very, very important to look at the job description of this individual. Whether you're setting up a care home, domiciliary care, supported living, you need to make sure that you appoint this individual who will be responsible in making sure that the organization has got all its logistics to function. The organization is financially viable. All its services are compatible with the CQC guidance and all other rules and regulations that governs the work that we do. And number three, CQC are saying in a very small organizations, it may be necessary for the same person to be both the registered manager and the nominated individual. And then at the end, they give us a caution. They're saying, but this should be avoided. Simply means that CQC recognizes that you do have small businesses. It's just a one-man band, somebody who really have clearly defined aims and objectives, wants to set up, say, domiciliary care, whichever way, and that individual is unable to recruit a registered manager. He or she becomes both the nominated individual and the registered manager. They are saying it's okay to do so, but it should be avoided where possible, because CQC are saying if you have one person occupying these two very, very important posts, what's going to happen if that individual is off sick, or that individual is suspended because of an ongoing safeguarding issue, etc., etc.? It automatically leads to a leadership vacuum. So they are saying try and avoid it. So in most applications, what you then need to do is to demonstrate that if, for instance, you are going to be both the nominated individual and the registered manager, you make an undertaking to CQC that, yes, as soon as we are registered, we are going to recruit, say, maybe a service coordinator or a deputy manager with the relevant qualifications and experience, so that there is a clear chain of command, or duties can be delegated in the absence of the person who's holding both offices. Very, very important. The other office is that of a registered manager. I think most of us are familiar with this role. Again, it's the registered manager for whichever services you have chosen. If it's for a care home, or whether it's for domiciliary care, whether it's a GP opening a practice, the registered manager's responsibility is to ensure that the services that are provided is high quality, person-centered, and the services are compatible with the Health and Social Care Act 2008 and all the Regulation 2014 and all the fundamental standards. We've got Regulation 7, we've got Regulation 12, safe care and treatment, etc., etc. So the manager must demonstrate that they are of good character, they have the relevant qualifications, competence, and experience, their ability to perform key tasks, verified suitability through documentation, including DBS's, right to work in the United Kingdom if you are from abroad. Very, very important role of a registered manager, because you are the link between the organization, your workforce, external stakeholders, CQC. You are the link, you are the cornerstone, you are connecting everything within the organization. So it's very, very important that when you are recruiting a registered manager, or if you are going to be the registered manager, making sure you've got all these qualifications. And this also applies to the nominated individual, because both of you are going to be part of the CQC fit for purpose interview, where CQC will be talking to you, having sometimes difficult questions, wanting you to demonstrate how your services is ready and how your service is going to be compatible with the regulatory framework. So just continuation on qualifications. We know that as part of your application, CQC will want to see evidence of these certificates. So we're talking about up-to-date training, mandatory training, and proof of qualifications. And because you are in a position of authority, CQC will want you to demonstrate that you do have leadership experience, whether you've been a senior care coordinator, a ward manager, or already an experienced registered manager. Your qualifications and experience ought to demonstrate that. And one of the key documents as well is the DBS. CQC have what they call a CQC countersigned DBS. So you need to make sure that you apply for an enhanced DBS, and it must not be more than 12 months when you register. You need to be cautious. You need to be vigilant and making sure that you double check your DB as its expiry date. We have seen situations whereby somehow, by the time you try to submit, you realize, my DBS has expired. It may cause delay. You have people who want to apply CQC because maybe they've officially, they're already providing services, and one of the commissioners are saying, you now providing clinical services, we want you to register for TDDI, and it's an emergency, you realize you don't have a DBS. So it's always good practice to be writing down the expiry date of your DBS somewhere. So I hope you're following. I've touched on the location, which is the office where services are managed from. I've touched on the office bearers. I spoke about the registered manager, the nominated individual. I've given you the job description of these individuals. You can always contextualize depending on the services you are applying for. For instance, if you're applying to provide personal care for people with, say, mental health or learning disability, autism, etc., you need to demonstrate that you have proof of qualifications and experience to manage those services. Because if not, the chances are you may not be successful in your fit for purpose interview, or this may cause delays in registering your organization with CQC. This is just some administrative, and it's very, very important. I'm saying it's important because we've seen, clients coming to us saying, I've had all my application rejected, sent back because of this employment history. If you put your employment history as a manager, they want you to state explicitly what you've done from the age of 16. Very, very important. It may just look as just a mere administrative process, but if there are any gaps more than four weeks, you need to explain. Any unexplained gaps, CQC will reject your application. So it's very, very important. If you are doing it yourself, be vigilant, or even if you have somebody doing it for you, you need to cross examine, you need to check and make sure that all the key dates are being put. I know it's difficult. I can imagine somebody who's, in his late 70s or so, having to go back to what you did at 16. But equally, it's very, very important, because if you don't do it, as I said, your application will be rejected. It's so demotivating. After making all the preparations, you are almost at the end and the whole application is rejected. And I think for those who are familiar with rejection, it's always that email that says you have to submit a new application and there are no priorities, which means you are not put on fast track. You go straight to the back of the queue. So very, very important. Other references are GP references and all other references from your current or your past employer or your colleague who are in a position of authority to give you a reference. Very, very important aspect. Now, once you've done all these arrangements, one of the things that we need to do is to draft the accompanying documents. Your application must be accompanied by detailed and comprehensive documents, and one of the key documents is the statement of purpose. This is the document that forms the foundation of your business. Depending on what you are applying for, you need to talk about the aims and objectives. We have had recently an application rejected because CQC are saying your aims and objectives are not contextualized to the services you are applying for. If you applied for providing, personal care, adults 18 to 65, 65 and over, and you've put learning disability, physical health, sensory, needs, etc., etc. The aims and objectives need to be contextualized to that which you are going to be providing. The statement of purpose needs to talk about the services specifically that you are going to provide. It needs to talk about different needs of people who will be using your services, your contact details, your legal entity, whether you are a limited company, limited liability partnership, CIC, whichever legal entity that your business is registered. And that's very, very important that you follow that. The places where services are provided. Now, this is tricky. When we say the places where services are provided, for those who are providing, care home, applying for care home is straightforward. Domiciliary care, again, straightforward. If you are applying for supported living, sometimes there is a confusion because when you say location, people think location will mean the accommodation where people are going to live. But for the purposes of CQC, the location, if you are doing supported living, is the office where your services are managed from, which means if you are using, where the accommodation which your service users are going to live, if you want to use that as an office, it's okay. But again, you need to demonstrate that there will be clear boundaries between where residents live and where the offices are. You shouldn't infringe their privacy. So that's what the statement of purpose is all about. It must be detailed. It's not only for CQCs, it's also for you to prepare, because whatever you put in that statement of purpose, it then feeds into your business plan and all supporting documents. The policies and procedures needs to align to your statement of purpose. So it's a very, very important document that you need to assemble as part of your CQC application, depending on the services you are applying for. This is a glimpse of, I think for those who've downloaded CQC Statement of Purpose template, this is what you'll see. Again, choosing whichever box you are choosing here, it helps you to prepare. For instance, if you are going to provide personal care, children 0 to 3, you need to be accustomed to the laws that governs working with children. You need to have a safeguarding policy that references to children, safeguarding pathways, LADO, etc., etc. And equally, if you are providing services to adult 18 to 65 and over, you need to go back to the definition of safeguarding. We know that the Care Act 2014, Section 42, talks to safeguarding. So it helps if you whichever box you tick, then it helps you to then plan in terms of what logistic requirements are needed here in terms of your workforce, systems in place, etc., etc. Service user band, again, here you can tick. The moment you tick learning disability or autism spectrum, you know what's expected from you. Again, if you go to physical disability, you need to think about the Equality Act, reasonable adjustments, etc., etc. Very, very important. So that's what you're gonna see that needs to appear in your statement of purpose, not only for administrative purposes, but again to help you plan before you are registered with CQC. Policies and procedures, again, depending on the services you are providing. We know about the July changes. We know that July 2025, there was an overhaul and everything. CQC changed in terms of supporting document. Again, if you go to CQC, applying as a new provider, you'll see the list of documents that you need to send. And CQC want your policies, again, to be contextualized. If you just submit documents that are very, very, descriptive, they don't touch on the legal framework for the services you're applying for, clear pathways, understanding of the regulatory framework, then you risk your application being rejected, or you risk failing your fit for purpose interview. So it's important that you have a comprehensive set of policies and procedures that enables you to manage the services in accordance with the legal framework or the regulatory requirement. Equally, you are expected to have a business plan, and CQC, again, they will be scrutinizing this document. The business plan must be comprehensive. It needs to identify the services that you are going to provide. It needs to touch on the market research, because you need to demonstrate that you planned for this. You didn't just wake up and say, I want to register with CQC. There is a detailed market research, SWOT analysis, a marketing strategy, most importantly, an organizational structure that shows how the services are going to be governed, and the financial focus for 3 years. Very, very important. So clearly you can see that it's not just a matter of submitting paperwork. The paperwork has to be detailed. It has to be contextualized to the services you want to provide. And this document must be robust. They must capture everything that needs to go in there, depending on the services you are going to provide. One more important aspect, again, is the financial viability form. I think we know that since 2018, since CQC introduced what we call a financial viability form that needs to be signed off by a qualified accountant or anybody with authority to sign to make declarations on financial viability. So as a provider, you need to have some people will be saying, how much money do you need to have for you to have an accountant signing a financial viability statement? There is no CQC does not provide a number to say you need to have 10,000 in your account, etc., etc. But when your accountants are trained in terms of coming to a conclusion that you are financially viable, it's something that they are professionals, they are experts. So there is a form. You can download it on CQC website, financial viability form. You need to have an audience or a conversation with an accountant. They will ask you specific questions. And then if they are happy, then make a declaration. They sign a form to say you are financially viable. So as part of your fit for purpose interview, if the inspector is not satisfied, they may ask for more evidence of how the finances are going to be managed. But with the financial viability, it doesn't guarantee that CQC are going to accept the document that we have, but it's good to have the financial viability form and be clear as well in terms of articulating or explaining how the financial aspect of the business are going to be handled. We also need insurance quotations, things like your public liability insurance certificate, public and employer liability insurance, professional indemnity insurance. These are all quotations. My experience is that sometimes it takes time for insurance companies to issue insurance. Some of them, they want detailed information. Small businesses a disadvantage because sometimes insurance companies will be reluctant. So it's good practice to start the conversations of insurance at an early stage of your application, so that by the time you make submissions, you already have you have these copies. They will be asking you questions. We know they'll be asking you some of the questions is send us a statement of purpose, send us a business plan, or they may request specific policies and procedures for them to issue with a quotation. So as part of your preparations, it's good practice in making sure that you arrange for this. Again, where we are now, we've spoken about the location, we've spoken about the office bearers, the nominated individual, and the registered manager. We've spoken about the DBS applications, the statement of purpose, and a very, very important document, the business plan, financial viability form, and all these quotations. So they form part of preparing to register with CQC, depending on which business that you are you want to apply for. You also have the information the ICO certificate, Information Commissioner's Office. I hope I got it right. This is to do with protection of information. So you need to have this certificate. I know there is a charge for this. I'm not 100% sure. I think it's £50 or so per year. Again, as part of your preparations, you need to make sure that you register and have this certificate. I spoke about the right of legal occupants, which means if you have an office as part of paperwork, you need to make sure that you have a document in form of a lease agreement, mortgage provider permission, etc., etc. I think I've already explained that this is to make sure that you do have the permission to use the offices, and the office must be physical, not virtual offices. Very, very important. So you've done everything. You've compiled all the paperwork. You are ready. The next thing is submission. Then I'm gonna go through the various stages of submission, from when you've submitted your application, the CQC validation stage, inspection, interview follow-ups, and all the way to registration. So once you've submitted your documents with all the accompanying policies, the 7 policies, statement of purpose, insurance quotations, financial viability, ICO certificates, etc., etc., you then submit your application both for the provider and the nominated individuals. Some applications do have additional forms depending on what you're applying for. For instance, if you are applying for learning disability, there is another form that accompanies your applications. But ordinarily, at stage 1, you just submit all your policies. Once you've submitted your policies, your application, it's important that you are vigilant, because CQC is going to communicate to you. The first point of communication is when they acknowledge your application, they give you an application reference number. And again, at this time, sometimes applications may disappear in your spam folder. So once you submit, I will advise you to be vigilant, to be monitoring your inbox and making sure that some emails don't hide in your spam folder. So after submission, your application goes to CQC's validation team. They will review your application. They look at everything that you submitted. They may come back to you for clarification. They may come back to you to ask for additional information. And it's very, very important again, because in most cases when CQC are coming back to you, it's either they'll just reject the application, or they may come back to you and say, received the application, could you please give us this information in 5 days' time? If you don't respond, then the whole application is rejected. So, so if you receive an email from CQC, don't panic. You need to understand what they're looking for. If it's something that you are unable to provide within that specific time frame, email them and ask for more time to say, because of this, for some reason or these particular reasons, I'm unable to give you all the required documents or information. Give me a week or so. Most of the time, CQC will always extend. So it's very, very important. Once the validation team is happy, clarifications are done, your application is going to go to what we call allocation. This is when the application goes to an inspector. Again, that's a very, very important development, because the inspector, with his or her management team, they will make decisions on the outcome, whether they are registering you or not. And equally at this time, the inspector may come back for clarity. They may phone you, they may email you, wanting some information to be verified before the fit for purpose interview. And during this period, if you are working with us, for example, we then need to do the fit for purpose preparatory sessions where we sit down with you, we prepare you, we make sure that you understand what's expected from you as the nominated individual and the registered manager. Once the inspector is happy, the next thing is for fit for purpose. They'll give you a date. If it's a care home, they will be coming to your care home. Domiciliary care, supported living, is supposed to be again a home visit, but we have seen most cases. My experience for the since COVID, I've seen most interviews are done virtually, either telephone or video. But you just need to prepare because sometimes CQC may want to see the videos of the office, your qualifications and everything. So make sure that the equipment that you are using to communicate with CQC is working, is in good condition, and you are able to communicate with CQC during the fit for purpose interview. So this is the final stage where the inspector comes for the inspection. They'll be asking you questions related to the services you've applied for. If you are successful, you'll receive a notice for registration. If you are not, you'll receive a notice of a proposal to refuse. So CQC will write a notice to say, after the interview, these were our findings. We don't think you are ready because of reasons A, B, C, D. If you are not happy, you are given 28 days to challenge and make counter presentations to say, no, you got it wrong. If you accept, it's either you withdraw. The best advice is to withdraw the application, because if you withdraw the application, it allows you to start from scratch, just a new application. But if you allow all the way to refusal, you'll end up with a certificate of refusal, which is something that I wouldn't advise you to. So at this point, you can withdraw and start all over again. But as I said, if you think you've done the right thing, the inspector got it wrong, you have the right to appeal. If you are successful, the next thing is the notification from the CQC registration team. You'll be invited to register on the CQC portal. You are now officially registered as a CQC provider. So I'm gonna have it, just a quick dive into fit for purpose interview. What's important is your understanding of the Health and Social Care Act 2008, Regulated Activities 2014. This is very, very important because this is the piece of legislation that gave birth to CQC's fundamental standard. You also have the Care Quality Commission Registration Regulations 2009 that talks about the statement of purpose in detail. It talks about the notices, things that you need to tell CQC without fail. Are very, very important. But there are other things that you need to consider as well. For instance, medication with NICE guidelines. You have other acts of parliament, the Mental Capacity Act, you got the Care Act, and all these things, they depending on the services you've applied for. But these are very, very key because they form the basis upon which CQC can make decisions on whether to register or not to register. We still have what you call, those who are familiar, we used to call them the 5 key lines of inquiry. Now they call them the 5 key questions. Very, very important. So as part of the registration, not only registration, in post-registration, how to manage regulated activities, CQC regulated activities. It's about your services being safe, being effective, being caring, being responsive, and being well-led. Being safe, it's about risk assessment, area risk assessment, environmental risk assessment, safer recruitment practices, etc., etc. Being effective is about governance, the things that we use to measure the effectiveness of our work. Being caring, demonstrating that this is going to be the founding values of the organization. Being responsive is about being proactive, anticipating changes, and implementing mechanisms in making sure that we deal with any eventualities. Being well-led is about the leadership. The nominated individual, the registered manager, making sure that the organization has got all what it needs to operate, supervision of staff, infection control mechanisms, etc., etc. So we're led, very, very important, because in the absence of leadership, services won't be safe, they won't be effective, they won't be caring, they won't be responsive. So very, very important, whether you're applying, preparing for fit for purpose, and managing day-to-day CQC services. Very, very important. So this marks the end of our conversations. Our conversation, as I said, iron sharpens iron. I've shared with you what I think is helpful. And I referred you to the CQC website. CQC is very, very good at updating. It's always changing. If you go to the publications now, you'll see what has happened just recently in October last month. You can go back to what happened in September and what's going to happen. So it's very, very important that you follow up on the updates on CQC, simply because there's lots of information nowadays. Each and every one of us is an expert. Some of the information is not substantiated by evidence, but if you go to the CQC website, most of the information, current information, is there. Thanks for joining. I hope the session has been helpful. Over to you, Angie.
Thank you very much, everyone. I'm not sure if you can hear me, or is it delayed? So can you all hear me? Yeah, thank you very much, Brussels. That was very, very helpful, and we hope everybody else find this helpful. We will be running some live sessions on a weekly basis, which gives you an opportunity to ask any questions. So thank you very much for joining our first live session on YouTube, and we look forward to seeing you. We've got another one coming up shortly in the next few minutes. So we'll be going live again. This time it's for the Ofsted registration. Thank you very much. We seem not to have any questions on the chat, so we will end this live session here. Thank you.